One, two, three, four.
You are listening to Skylight, the Skylight Books podcast. Skylight Books is a general interest bookstore in the Los Feliz neighborhood in Los Angeles. You can shop with us from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. or visit us online 24/7 at skylightbooks.com. Follow along at Skylight Books Instagram and Twitter. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening, and now on to the episode.
Hello, my beautiful listeners, and welcome to Skylit. This is the Skylight Books podcast, and I'm your host, Lance Morgan. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Ramy Youssef, writer and creator of the hit Hulu series Ramy. But before we start, I want to remind you that Skylight Books is now currently open with full capacity, but we're still adhering to the mask mandate. So please bring your masks and just be aware of all the people around you. But come on by, we missed you guys. Our website is also still available for online ordering at www.skylightbooks.com, so check that out as well. Ramy Youssef is an American stand-up comedian, actor, writer, and director, known for his role as Ramy Hassan on the Hulu comedy series Ramy, for which he's received the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor and a Peabody Award in 2020. He was also nominated for 2 Prime Emmy Awards, one for Outstanding Director for a Comedy Series and another for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. He also starred in his first HBO stand-up comedy special, Ramy Youssef Feelings, as well as the television series Mr. Robot and See Dad Run. Ramy, I'm so excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. This is really cool because when was it? I was walking through Skylight and I think I asked you for some book recommendations because I didn't really know what I wanted to get into and you kind of pointed me in the right direction. So it's really cool to get to do this a couple months later.
No, it's so funny because then you're recommending me. I was like, wait, I know you. How do I? I was like, oh my God, you're Ramy Youssef from the show Ramy, one of my favorite shows. And I feel like a lot of listeners will be like, yeah, oh my God, what? Ramy Youssef from my favorite show Ramy? No, this is gonna be, thank you for doing this.
From my favorite bookstore. So here we are.
Oh my God, you guys heard that. I'm getting on record, recorded. That's gonna be on my resume now, that clip recording there. No, this is so exciting. No, let's get started. This is gonna be a fun conversation about, today we're gonna talk about Ramy's writing and reading influences. So no, this is so exciting for me. So let's get started. Can you tell me about your history in of writing in literature and any kind of written word from your past?
Yeah, well, I started. Is it I think I was probably an early reader. My parents were really kind of fanatic about us learning English really well and learning Arabic really well, and so it was kind of this thing of just my mom always really pushing books, and right. and we grew up with just huge bookshelves and encyclopedias, and my mom actually is trilingual, Arabic, English, and French.
Amazing.
But I didn't get the French, but
it's not too late.
Do you think there's a chance?
I think there's a chance. I have confidence in you.
I'm always I know it's technically not too late, but man, It really feels like it's too late. It's always tough with another language.
Yeah.
I think you would have to be pretty immersive, and so I think it's more it feels too late for it to be a priority. Mm-hmm. And then if it's just on the back burner, I could probably whip out a few words or something, but I think there was a real emphasis on language though. And actually my grandfather was a translator, an interpreter for the United Nations. And so he interpreted kind of these huge meetings and conferences that would happen at the UN. You know, that's how my mom's side of the family came to the States, was via that. And so big emphasis on reading. But I actually remember as a kid really kind of, I learned how to read really quick, but then I was very reluctant. I think it was a focus thing. I still sometimes just have trouble focusing on books. Like and it's funny, even on the day I saw you, I feel like I bought like 5 different things and then I just keep darting between them. It's actually admittedly a hard thing for me to read, because sometimes I'm just, and I think we all kind of deal with different versions of it, but that was really present for me as a kid. And then my mom, I think like a lot of kids my age at the time, she took me to a bookstore. She's like, you got to buy something, you got to read something. I super stereotypical, picked up Harry Potter, the first one, lost my mind. And then that just opened up like a reading tear, you know. Then I was just reading, you know, everything I could get my hands on. And then I think I was really, really interested in video cameras. I was pretty obsessed with them. And one of the first things I ever bought was a video camera. I bought it online with all my birthday money, and had a little black and white monitor, and I think it was like $300 or something at the time. But I just shot so many things, and I would go through, at the time, Windows Movie Maker, and then it became Final Cut, and was making these little music videos. And then I kind of wanted to do little scenes, and so I would start to write, you know, an idea. It'd be a couple jokes, but what if this thing happened, that thing happened, then I'd kind of try it and put my friends in it, be on it. And then I think really my writing in terms of on screen always kind of grew through wanting to make things in partnerships. You know, I had a sketch group, we made things. Me and my co-creators have made my show, and then kind of got on to write other things, all of us, and obviously writing stand-up. And so and I kind of was even reflecting on like what kind of stuff I've been reading, and I've not been reading a lot of fiction for a really long time, probably since I was young. I think a lot of the things I read are like, hey, there's an idea I really want to know that I want now. You know, I kind of zone in on whether it be some sort of help that I need or some sort of history that I want. And then the other things kind of tend to, I've had less of a love affair with fiction in at this stage of my life, but I want to get back into it, and I'd love to write fiction that you know, isn't meant for the screen.
Right. I mean, what I'm hearing is we're going to set up a book deal with you and Skylight, and just no, I mean, no, that's, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of, it sounds like you like, I mean, just the written spoken word is just such an important part of your own history and where you are right now. And you were like talking about, you know, Harry Potter, which for many was like, you know, a big stepping stone for reading. And like, it was just, I mean, I was going to say a huge part of the cultural zeitgeist, but it might've been like the cultural zeitgeist when it was like in its height. I mean, that, was there any other books like that you remember like being just so important for your childhood that like even now like you think about it, you're like, wow, that was something that changed me in a way?
Well, there was a book that I read that I remember, you know, it was actually one of the books I was maybe going to recommend, but it's a book I go back to often. It's called it's a transcription of a speech, so it's maybe even like I'm cheating by calling it a book, but it's by this Jesuit priest. I believe he was an Indian Jesuit priest, named Anthony DeMello, and he had this book called Awareness. I think it's called Awareness, the Perils and Opportunities of Reality, which I always thought was like a kind of wild, you know, title. But I went back to that a lot because that really, he talks a lot about certain levels of personal responsibility and certain kind of ethics. And I think I'm really drawn to ethics. I'm drawn to them for myself because I want them for myself.
Right.
And then I'm drawn to them in stories because they feel like such a difficult thing to attain. You know, it's always a really fun thing to see a character for me kind of, you know, want to be in a situation where they can answer a moral question in a certain way. And so that was a book that I really kind of went back to that felt really formative as well. And then, I was just ripping through the fiction. I was just like, I think I went through the Lord of the Rings too, which are way harder to get through, but I was really into them. I was picking up biographies. I remember there was like a couple of just like, I mean, the big biography for me was the autobiography of Malcolm X, you know, the Alex Haley, you know, which is, I'm sure that's come up on the podcast before.
I mean, if it has, I mean, like, it's just because it's so powerful. It's like one of those books.
Unbelievable.
You have to read it. You have to read it. I mean, it's just, it should be required reading in like high school for kids to read. Oh yeah. No, and like from what you're saying too, it sounds like you had a very like interesting relationship with fantasy too, which like, I mean, no, I feel like a bunch of people, I mean, I did myself, had this like extensive relationship with fantasy and like that specific type of fiction. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like what your relationship was with fantasy back then?
Well, I mean, I think it was like, it was obviously inspired by the Harry Potter of it, but I mean, I think it really was, it's a way of thinking, you know. I think when you're into those worlds, because I think we're always kind of trying to put our finger on how the world works, and sometimes the world you're in, the rules aren't really clear, and so you're like, oh, let me go to this other world where like I can at least see all the, and you know the thing I was actually kind of lamenting with a friend of mine was just the hype that we used to feel around that Harry Potter midnight book release. It was just mind blowing. I mean, like I couldn't sleep for weeks. I was so excited that it was going to come. And then I would get there and then I would just stay up I'm like, I got to get the first 2 chapters down before I fall asleep, you know, because you've been up all night waiting to get it for when it's like midnight at Barnes and Noble and they're going to open up the doors. And, you know, so that was like, to me, it was a lifestyle, you know, and it was this whole community. And I remember, you know, a couple of my friends got really deep into the online world. I didn't, but there was like that deep online world of like, you know, Harry Potter role play stuff and all that kind of thing. And they'd be over like, I don't know if you knew about the Habbo Hotel.
Oh no, what is this?
It's super niche. I feel embarrassing even talking about it. But you go on there and it was like a Sims type game, but people turned it into a Harry Potter thing and they were casting spells, and it was, you know, it got deep.
This sounds, I mean, let's bring it back. Let's like, that sounds like it needs a 2021 reboot. Sounds great. No, I mean, maybe not, right? Maybe not 2021, but no, I mean, I feel like there's a whole generation of insomniacs birthed from like the midnight release of Harry Potter. Wow. Because I think I read that. I stayed up for like 14 hours reading the last one when it came out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You had to. It was huge. No, there was, I mean, that sounds, the escapism, what you're talking about. Yeah, there is. Yeah. I feel, especially for like teenagers or like preteens, there was that like, oh, where you're in that weird age too, where you're like, I'm not in my childhood anymore in the same way, but I'm not in adulthood yet.
Yes.
So where nothing makes sense to me. Yes. So yeah, of course, like books like that would just like, yeah, this makes sense. This is how the world works. Yeah. No, that's, I mean, yeah, what, but I think you should get back into fiction, fantasy, not even fiction. I think I feel like there's a lot of
What's the fantasy vibe right now that you're feeling?
I mean, there's a lot of really good. I mean, N.K. Jemisin is, you know, taking the world by storm right now with her like fantasy novels. It's very like new age, very it feels like exists in a fantasy novel that should exist in 2021 versus like,
Yeah.
you know, Lord of the Rings feels like uh, earlier generation of fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Or like Chronicles of Narnia, even the time period of
Hmm.
that was like different. Where this feels like, oh yeah, this should be the
Hmm.
forefront of fantasy. I mean,
Mm.
fantasy even sci-fi, like Octavia Butler
Mm.
is everyone listening should read Octavia Butler. I feel like I've said this
Mm.
before on the podcast, but
Yeah.
there's like really good. I mean, especially today and everything going on, I feel like this is the perfect time to revisit that fantasy and escapism and a world that makes sense, basically.
Totally.
A world that makes sense and like has an outcome at the end that's kind of, you know, like, oh, everything works out in the end kind of
Or it's
thing.
just.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
just, you know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
hero makes sense. Even though I feel like that's, you know, even that's going away. The idea of a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's we're figuring it out what that means now. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna recommend fantasy
I'm
to go
in.
back
I'm
to.
in. No, I'm
Yeah.
in.
No, let's talk. I wanted to hear about your writing process, though. Your writing like, as a writer now, a person who, I mean, I can only imagine how much you're writing constantly.
Yeah.
How does that feel now to be like, to like have to grow up with this like fascination about with words and how they it both work in the written and spoken word. And even you were saying that like one of your favorite books is a speech, which I feel like is like, you know, both of those together. How does it feel now to be on the other side of like writing, making this content?
It's awesome. I mean, like it's really, it's awesome to kind of get the opportunity to do it professionally, but I
Mhm.
think like, and I'm sure you've had other writers on here, like the writing process is super painful and it's like
Yeah.
super and I don't think there's like anything about adding pressure to it that makes it like
Mhm.
more fun. I think you feel more
Yeah.
supported. I think you feel
Right.
more kind of like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But yeah, I mean, the writing process for me, especially because a lot of it was born out of stand up and born out of like
Mhm.
making little videos and that kind of thing, really stepping it up so that I think what I've been struggling with most is writing when I want to write. It's like I
Mhm.
know if I have like a bunch of time, like I'll find the story.
Right.
But sometimes it's like, yo, you got a bunch of shit this week, and it's like you have to write on Monday. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
fuck. Like, then Monday comes and you're just like, I gotta write today. And then there are times where I only have a seed and then it ends up getting, really formed as we kind of talk it out. But we do a lot of talking as a group, and then that turns into beats, you know, and then I kind of take those beats of, okay, character's gonna do this, then the character's gonna do that, and then
Right.
I write it. And then so
Mhm.
I'll take it off and I'll write an outline, and I'll write like a pretty detailed outline with dialogue, with everything,
Mhm.
with all that stuff. And that's probably a 15-page document
Right.
that will then, we could just see it kind of written out in paragraph form with the dialogue and all that, and then that gets
Mhm.
turned into a script. And so there's a few phases when kind of writing for the show as a group, um, and then I'm like really working out dialogue in stand up. I'm really working out
Mhm.
premises and doing all that. Um, so that's really with the show. And then I think with a lot of the other things that I've been working on in writing, it always starts with just a few of, okay, here's a scene I really want to do,
Mhm.
and what would make this scene make sense? Like,
Right.
why should anyone watch that one scene I want to do? And then I
Right.
start building around it. You kind of find those tent poles, and then you start doing scaffolding.
I mean, that that just like the process of that too must have been the evolution of that. I mean, even from season one of Ramy, or even from your comedy and like sketch comedy past and stand up past, must have been so like, I mean, rewarding to see like the evolution of that, but also like, how is that? How has it been like even thinking back on the past of that as, you know, different stages of your writing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting, we've been really like, I've just been, you know, amazed at seeing it grow from the stand up, because there were some jokes that I told that are all throughout the first season of the show. And I had this really surreal feeling when I was watching the show, after everything was all said and done. And I was like, man, I wrote that joke at a fucking college in Pennsylvania
Yeah.
in 2013, where I was like just
Right.
trying to it's just crazy. It's crazy. You're like, wow, you tell these jokes at cafes, or you think of them one night, and then they are in the show. And that's so surreal to me. I mean, I had a couple surreal moments with the writing process where there was this cafe I used to write at, and I wrote a lot of the first season at the cafe. I definitely wrote the pilot at the cafe, but I would just, I would go there all the time. And then it was just by luck. There was like a billboard for the show, like right above the cafe, So there's certain things where you're kind of like, oh wow, that's fucking, you would never
Right.
imagine it. And then it happens. And you're like, oh, this is really cool. This is like, it's really cool.
I mean, I can only imagine. Yeah, that's must them the just even seeing like, I mean, your name up there too must have been like
Yeah.
such a surreal experience there. I mean, and like even within the screenwriting there, I mean, there's so much like with, between dialogue and action and like describing the scenes too. What's your like favorite part there and like writing the different components of one scene?
It's a good question. I think like, I mean, dialogue, probably dialogue, because what's really fun, and this is where I have a lot of fun on the show, because we'll break beats as a group, but then when I start writing, totally different things start to happen. And a lot of it is just dialogue driven, because I push myself in an outline to be dialogue heavy. I think a lot of outline writers, just by the design of outline, it's an outline. And so you kind of have in your head, like, okay, we'll work on dialogue later. So we put kind of the bare minimum amount of dialogue to tell you what's going to happen in the scene. So the network gets it and approves it, and then they send you the script. I'm someone who I put almost fully the amount of dialogue that's going to be in the script is in the outline. So my outlines are always late. They always take way too much time. But when I hand them in, it's like, oh, wait, you wrote the dialogue. And the reason why I do that is because the dialogue will always lead me to like more interesting things, and so like there's this scene that I was, I'm not giving anything away by any means, but there's this scene that I just wrote for the third season of the show. And it's fresh on my mind. There's a ton of examples like this, but this is a perfect example where I was kind of writing this scene with the character of my mother, and I was trying to describe a feeling, and I kind of was writing about this pool that they have in the backyard and how the kids don't use the pool, and they used to use the pool as kids, and so I wrote this. I'm really pushing myself to write the dialogue, and I'm like, and I'm pushing her to kind of say what she wants to say, and then it kind of comes out where it's like, she doesn't want them to swim in the pool now. She misses when they used to swim in the pool as kids, when she just look out the window and she just see them waving, asking for a hot dog.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, now I want to write her going to get hot dogs. You know what I mean? So it's like, but like, I never would have written the hot dog scene if I didn't try to write the dialogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would have just been, and then it took the script to like a whole other direction, because that's dialogue driven, because we're really kind of creating a want and a desire for this character, and then we're on the page, so we get to, wow, we could seek immediate satisfaction in this way that we can't in real life. And so that part is so much fun to me when I'm writing, and because there's all this stress before writing where you're like, what if it fucking sucks and it's the worst idea on earth, and what if we're frauds and this and that, and you sit down and you move past all that and you start writing, and then you're like, oh, this is so fun, you know, like this is like, you know, whoa, we can take it somewhere, and so to be able to kind of have curiosity in that part of the process is really, really exciting to me.
And I mean, yeah, on that too, like, because that seems like what you were talking about, like that scene seemed like such a, not a memory, but like an emotion, a strong emotion. And I can only imagine writing a show like Ramy, which, is a show where the titular character is your name, must like come from a specific place, from not even your memory, but just like, places you've been, places you've things you've seen, things you grew up with, things you still are hanging on to. How has that been with the writing process of the show? Like dealing with these like memories maybe, or, connection to like different characters in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like a level of catharsis, but I mean, I think, there's a lot of fictionalization. I mean, I think that part of the process for me was really making sure that, I'm not making something that would feel personally uncomfortable for my family. I mean, I think that like there are parts of it that feel uncomfortable to them, like the sex and, a lot of the topics that we get into, but I don't want anyone to feel like I'm, giving a biography of them or something, so there's a lot of creative, liberty taking, this isn't a didactic telling of my life. It really is me getting to play with the emotions of ethics, of spirituality, and all the things that aren't just important to me, but that make me laugh. And so it's like getting to make this really fun soup of things. And so it's very, again, it satisfies my curiosity and in a way that, I feel very grateful for.
Do you feel like you get to like, on the topic of ethics, get to like, experiment with your own questions on like ethics by writing this character of Ramy, like questions you might have for yourself? You're like, let me throw this to this script and see what happens there.
Oh yeah. These questions were all asked.
Right.
And they don't all have answers, you know, and I think that's what's fun about getting to open up the conversation. And so that's always been a really fun part of the show too, is people watching it and kind of reflecting different things back.
I mean, yeah, I feel like one of the things that was very talked about after, especially that second season, which was so, I have no words for like how I felt after it. Like the conversation was like about ethics, about like, about the relationship between like who we want to be versus who we are. And like, how was it seeing like, this work that you and your creators and your writers got to work on. Sorry, that's LA behind me, honking. But no, like seeing these questions that you got to ask being also talked about like by everyone.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's interesting because I think like I tend to get more of the feedback in person. Like even getting to meet you is really cool. Like I think like meeting people in person is really fun. Meeting people at stand-up shows when we got to be in a room together. I don't see too much of the online stuff. Like it was something I looked at probably more during the first season, and then and it was interesting for sure. But I kind of started to feel like, in terms of talking about writing process, I think whether it be Twitter, whether it be Instagram, whether it be whatever it is, writing with those mediums in mind, I think is a pretty downhill, maybe not downhill, a losing battle. It's a very anti-creative, antagonistic environment that can have real beautiful nuggets of truth on it, but I don't think the nuggets of truth outweigh all the other stuff in terms of looking at it as a creative person. So I don't really look at it too much. You know, I mean, I think the stuff that's particularly good ends up coming to me anyway.
Right.
You know, my buddies will send me if someone's like being critical in a funny way, or they'll send me if someone's saying something really nice, or something that is even a valid point. You know, those things will tend to kind of come, they'll rise to the surface, but um I guess I say that to say I don't see all the discussion all the time, but when I
Right.
meet people, that's when it is really fun to talk, because it's like, oh cool, we get to like talk in real life, and that um anytime something you do on screen can then foster like a real life connection, that I love that.
And I mean, I think, yeah, from something I did, I hope I'm saying this right, but like something that like I loved from your show was that it did cause it made me myself, and I know other people, friends of mine who I was talking to who watched it, like want to talk to each other about it, want to like, talk to each other about how we saw ourselves through like the characters on it, saw our own problems, saw our own, ethical questions, which I feel like, even seeking it online, sometimes we're like, oh, I want to know how someone else felt about what I just saw on there, and like how I mean that I feel like that's from what you were talking about, how you read ethics, you read books about ethics and are researching this. I feel like you caused an audience of people to do the same thing. We wanted to like find our own ethical like
It's really
answers
interesting.
through
What
stuff.
did it lead you to anything that you can share?
I mean, wow, yeah, yeah, no, I think it did. I mean, like, family, definitely, like, the question of how, like, we treat our family, and even in the sense of, like, how because something I felt in the last season of it was, like, how we don't even see how we affect our family. And in the other way, like, everyone in the family, like, has that specificness there, but, like, even, like, one thing that I really I really that resonated with me was when at the very end when Ramy got the dog from the father, and the father was just so heartbroken over it because Ramy didn't even realize that his father like had this relationship with the dog that Ramy thought he didn't care about, and it was just like, but it was something where I was like, whoa, that's so like this, like we saw the father have this huge relationship with his dog and it meant so much to him, and he kind of like changed in a way too. We saw all of this like emotion towards it, and then Ramy just took it away, and he didn't even realize what he was doing there. So I don't know. It just made me realize like,
I love that you saw that, because that to me is such a moment that I love, but it's almost like this, like it's such an arc for a character,
yeah,
but yeah, we don't point at it too much. It's such a cool
right.
thing to hear pointed out.
No, it was one of those like those split second moments that I was like, and it's that like those small split second moments where you don't realize what you're doing to like you might be doing affecting someone else too. No, it was that one was my big moment, which I feel like there's out of a season of like huge moments and huge character points, that one I stuck out to me the most. No, that was, yeah, that was one big moment for me. But I could also talk for hours about the last conversation Ramy had with Mahershala Ali's character. That last conversation where I think I rewound it like 3 times to just watch it over again to be like,
Oh
oh my
wow.
God. But like, no, it was just there were so many moments like that that were so powerful. But I also want to talk about like your relationship with being a writer on this show and also being a performer on this show, and like how like how that must work for you. Like you are playing the titular character of the show, but you're also like very much just a big creative voice behind it too. How does that work for you?
um you know, it's they're kind of one and the same. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
it all kind of flows through what I feel will work best for not just my character, but all the characters in the show. And I think, you know, you can see when you watch the show that I have a lot of fun not being in the show as a performer. And so it's really some of my favorite work that I get to do does not involve me as a performer. So they're very separate buckets. And I really, especially right now writing the third season, I'm so cognizant of like how much the Ramy character just actually feels like a different person. It didn't feel that way writing season 1, but now that we're at season 3, I'm just kind of like, okay, this is a different thing. Like this isn't,
Right.
you know, and that is, I think, has led to more creative writing, like, and just kind of more interesting, you know, it's just been more fun, you know, and so it is, it's something that like, I could see being in the position that I'm in and kind of feeling like, oh, I want to write more for myself or whatever. But I'm really kind of not, that's not kind of where I come at it from. I kind of come from, you know, what do I want to see? And a lot of times that's not myself, you know?
No, I mean, like, because I can only imagine the self-reflection of that, or the like it's looking in your mirror, right? Where you're just like, oh no, I don't want to see myself right now. But no, I mean, like, it must be, do you feel like a writer though when you're on set performing sometimes? Do you feel like you're taking off that writer hat when you're on camera, or do you still feel like, because I mean, with a show like this, I can imagine you're just performing and be like, no, I could punch this up, or I can maybe take.
Yeah, it's always changing, always. I mean, it's like, and I'm so lucky that we have these amazing performers, like everyone in the cast is so great. So I'm able to really like act opposite them, and, you know, really like be in the moment and be in the scene. And at the same time, I can have writer brain going and being like, I want to change this line and I want to do this and like whatever. And, you know, because a lot of this stuff too, I'm in it and I'm directing it as well. So there's often like 3 things going on, but it only really works because the actors in the show are so good that I'm able to lose myself in the acting with them, while still monitoring and kind of shepherding all the other stuff. And obviously I do it with a lot of help. I mean, you know, we have just great producers who have their eyes on stuff, and, you know, my co-creators.
No, I mean, like that. Yeah, I can imagine like you know, the team behind it, like very much like just being amazing there, especially as a performer, when you're like, you know, switching hats there as a writer, and like then you're in front of the camera, your team must have your back there so much. Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it leads to my next thing, kind of, about more like your favorite. I don't think there's a good transition there between them, so I'm just gonna go there. Ramy, to all my listeners, Ramy has a treat for us where he's going to, I think he kind of alluded to this before, recommend some books to our listeners that he likes.
Oh man.
And that he wants you to read, so that you will also, when this episode come out, see on a virtual bookshelf on our Skylight Books website. So look out for that too. I mean, official. We're honored. I want you to know we're honored to have you on our website. So, listeners, this is going to be exciting.
Oh my gosh, a lot of buildup. I mean, look, you know, I mean, it's well, first off, in my digital bookshelf, you know, you got to put one of the Harry Potters, because you got to. So this is, I don't know if this is one that a lot of people would pick, but Order of the Phoenix is actually low key kind of my favorite one. I know, I see your face. Not everyone on the podcast can see the face. I know it's not the go-to, but the reason why I love book 5 is because it's like the first book where they kind of start like really fighting. You know, like I think it's when they start not going to school, and I love that shit. And I was like, yo, they're about to, like, we've been talking about Voldemort for 4 books. Like we've just been sitting and complaining, and now like we're going for Voldemort. Like that shit, I was very into that.
Well, there's, I mean, they take their own agency, right? They're like, oh, we're done like letting things happen to us. Now we're gonna start like fighting back. Yeah, no, I
Yes.
mean that it's so funny because I yeah, it's not my number one, but it's in my top three actually, because I think yeah, it's the longest one, and I appreciate that because I'm like I don't want to leave this world. I remember I was like I don't want to leave this world. I want to
I
keep
know. I never want them
in
to
it.
end.
I never want them to end. I was like 700 pages. Okay, JK, let's go. Let's do this all. But like
Never want them to
I
end.
I never want it to end. No, in number five, I mean, there's so much story in there. There's so much.
Yeah.
Each character from I think almost every book has a part to play in that book too. So
Yes.
I
Yeah. So that's a big one.
I back it
There's
up.
just a book that I really, really love is this book called The Great Theft. And it's by this professor. His name is Khaled Abu Fadl. And it's a great book. It's a historical book about Islam. The reason why I really like The Great Theft is because it it puts history into a really interesting perspective where you kind of, realize the debates between genuine scholarship and then just kind of like authoritarian rule. And it's actually a book about Islam versus extremism, but it's like extremism is not really defined in the way that you would think it is, because you kind of realize all governments and authoritarian regimes act extremely.
Right.
And I would say with everything that's kind of really been happening, but even if, as we sit here today, I don't know when this is going to come out, but, the absolute shit show that's been going down in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
it's really like the type of book that I think if more people were aware as to kind of what conversations were happening within the various Muslim communities, it would be really interesting, because I think I find myself often, obviously it's reflective in the show, but it's really interesting because we've been talking about the show for a while and we haven't really even talked about Islam, because it's not really about that, I mean, it is what's going on with the characters, but it's not really about that. But something that is, and that's by design, but something that's interesting to me about a book like the Great Theft is, we talk about Muslims a lot, but we don't really talk to Muslims. We don't talk with Muslims.
Right.
And so it's a really great window into what's been happening, and it's really kind of well written, and it's more philosophical, and you can kind of see how many faith traditions have been through their message being turned into an authoritarian type thing that is not really at the core of the principles that we would hope to derive from any faith.
Right. And I mean that, especially what's going on right now, as you were saying, and I feel like this past year with the pandemic, everything that's all the movements that's happened, it's been a year of people being like, oh wow, I'm not as educated. And I feel like that's a lot of and sorry to take away from your recommendation here for a second. I mean, that's a lot of fear of learning about it, is the fear of saying, oh, I don't know enough. I don't know what's happening. And I feel like we need to get over that as a society of like being afraid of being seen as not knowing enough, because we don't know everything. It's impossible.
No, there's all this info. It's like,
there's so much info,
so much stuff. And have you ever read Tribe by Sebastian Junger?
Yeah, I've read it. When did I read it? Oh, I forgot when I read it, but yes, I've read it. It's so good.
Tribe is so good. I don't know if that's been on anyone's digital bookshelf, but that one is.
It's on yours now.
Is a gem of just again kind of looking at, especially like right now, right, with coming off lockdown, various probably lockdowns in our future of some sort. It's a really great kind of look at community and it from like a really anthropological perspective. I mean, I think even if something like The Great Theft is more spiritual and philosophical in nature, this is total anthropology vibes of just kind of the ways in which we've really separated ourselves. I mean, there's this one really kind of striking thing he pulls out of just the connection between suicides and like the apartment complex. you know,
Mhm.
and just the idea of like, we're in the first time in human history, just this last modern stretch, where you could go a whole day without, not only without seeing anyone, but then if you saw
Mhm.
people, it could be a bunch of people and you didn't know any of them, and kind of what that does to the brain that is
Yeah.
used to kind of being in a different, completely different type of society, surrounded by family, you know, being in different ways, what that does to our mental health and what that does in
Mhm.
to our communication. So it's really really striking. I mean, I love that book. It's really well written, and it kind of, the ideas in there are really dope.
And I mean, one thing I did, and you were talking about, yeah, the idea of like being around family in the apartment complex, but also like in a larger scale, like how we, and especially, yeah, I've had this conversation with people about how, you know, barrier, what does barriers and like uh borders mean? Like, what is that? What is the point of them? What does it mean to say this person is from somewhere else versus me being, especially, I mean, there's a very like American patriotic ideal of like, I am this and this is who I am
Mhm.
versus you, who's an outsider, which is like, what do you mean? What is the outsider? What is outside? What is outside of, is outside of you specifically, or is outside of what you think you deserve in like,
Mm.
and like I mean the book talks a lot about war too, right? And how war really makes you think of like, it makes you other a lot of people
Yeah,
too. So
yeah.
it's just, and I mean like even war from inside the country, like the war on race, the war on, I know, yeah, I mean race is the big one on my mind right now. But yeah,
No, of
it's like,
course. I mean, it's yeah, it's just like it's really important to look at. I think you're laying out parts that are really interesting to me too. Is just not only that there is division, but why the division, and
mhm,
and kind of looking at the ways that we're setting that up for ourselves. And
mhm.
um, so yeah, that book is really dope. And you know, I think like I'm trying to rack my brain for like fiction that's hit me over the last couple of years. Because okay, like autobiography of Malcolm X is totally in the bookshelf. I mean,
Oh yeah,
obviously,
100%.
if awareness is a book, I think it's a book. I don't think it's just a speech. I think it's a book. I have a copy of the book. That's a great
Yeah.
one. But you know, fiction. You know, I mean, I love like Juno Diaz.
Oh,
This is
I'm
how you
ready.
lose her is
Yes.
probably like that blew my fucking mind. I mean, that was just
Mm.
like the language on that. I couldn't really get over it. I really felt like I was inside somebody's mind. Like in every chapter as it rotates, as it moves around, I really was like, wow, this is so singular. It's really unbelievable.
It's one of those books I feel like anyone who writes character, who wants to be like better at writing
Yeah.
character or better at writing like how to get into the mind of a person you're creating, and like I feel like I've recommended that to writers who I'm just like, if you want to get like, if you want to like really understand your character, read this book because this person does it amazingly. Like Joe Diaz does it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm like thinking about it now, and I'm just like, wow, mind blowing. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a perfect book to read if you just want to like
A big
really,
bookshelf book.
yeah.
And then I'll give one more, which is kind of like a little bit in the it's a little bit in the self-help category, but
Mm,
it's not really actually. So
mm.
have you read Deep Work by Cal Newport?
No, I haven't read Deep Work.
It's a really interesting book. It I think it's a book that like every writer should read, and it's a book that I wish I could like live up to, like
Mm,
in its principles, because they're so good. But it's really about working styles and how to divide a day. And you know, he really talks about what I find about it, because I think our lives are so busy and complex now, and we all have like so many things pulling at our attention.
mhm,
The book that's really good at harnessing your attention and kind of like putting some rules around what you're paying attention to and when, and giving yourself
mhm,
real time to do it. And so I really appreciated it. And he kind of talks about like Carl Jung, and he talks about a lot of
mhm,
these great thinkers and prolific writers and think, the way they kind of, he gives you a peek into how a lot of like really impressive people organize their day. And I thought that was like, I really loved that. I was like, oh wow, I needed to read this when I read it.
And I mean, like, even when you said that, like, you're trying to live up to it, I mean, that's sometimes I feel like when I read books like that, where I'm like, even me trying to live up to it is bettering myself. Me trying to like realize, it's you. And that's, I mean, I feel like one of the things people fall off on with those books are like their idea of like, I can't reach these goals. But it's like, you don't need to. You just need to like find out how it works for you and find out how to like, move from there. No, that's, I mean, I think that's a great ender for for your bookshelf. It's a good ender for your bookshelf. So if you're listening and you want to go back and see what books Ramy just recommended, check out his online bookshelf at Skylight, which is live now when you're listening to this episode. So check it out. Ramy, I have one last thing.
Yes.
One last thing to ask you before we go. Is there any do you have any idea, or not idea, that's not the right word. Is there any future of you in literature, do you think, where like you want to write, you would write a book or any kind of like, any kind of book in that way? Which I would.
It's I'm like sorry, I like cut you off because I'm like, I think there is. No, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, because I want to. What I'm saying is, selfishly, I want to buy this book. I want to read this book.
It's really kind of you. I think there might be. I mean, like I said, like I really have such a good time writing the outlines on my show, and they're so, if you read them, they feel like short stories. They feel really kind of like little, like they're meant for the page, and I think that's something that I'm very attracted to, especially with like, it'll be fun to just do new things. And so I hope so. Yeah, I do.
So if you're listening, there's hope. There's hope for us. We're gonna get it. We're gonna hopefully get this book. No, I mean it. And I feel like it'll be a great book. So again, if you're looking for a place to premiere this book, I know a bookstore.
Hey,
Listen, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Ramy. Thank you for doing this. To all my listeners, this has been Ramy Youssef talking to me in conversation just about his writing and his, favorite books. And Ramy, do you have anything you would like to say to the, book community, the independent bookstore community at all?
I'm very excited to learn from the book community. You're all much smarter than I am, but I really appreciate you humoring me. But yeah, this was really fun. Thanks, Lance.
No, thank you. And thank you to all my listeners out there. Thank you for coming back. And for all my new ones, thank you for joining. And please, stick around. We have some really great authors. I'm excited for our authors for the second half of this year. So yeah, stick around and listen. But thank you again, Ramy. Thank you to all my beautiful listeners. You have a great rest of your day.
You too. Right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.